Let's now turn to another aspect of the India story, which is actually driving most of us nuts. How many times in a day do we look at our phones when it rings to just see a random, unknown, weird-looking number staring back at us? And of course, most of us have trained our eyes to look at a number and instantly know that we need to hit the red button. Some of us who are smarter may just have Truecaller or similar apps downloaded on our phone, but that's got its own issues. It's got major privacy issues. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening is, most of the time you see that number and you pick it up and you answer and it's a recorded message and your blood pressure shoots up and you get stressed. And I'm sure that's not particularly good for you. It is really irritating. It is really irritating. The incessant attempts to sell us the lowest interest rates, credit cards with so-called brilliant offers, the fastest broadband connections are, honestly speaking, nothing short of a complete nuisance. And let's not even get into the timing of these calls. Or actually, stop. Let's get into the timing of these calls. Those calls come during peak office hours. You're having a meeting. You're taking the first bite of your lunch, or sometimes early morning on the weekends. You're preferring to wake up, have a relaxed time, and then what do you have? The phone is ringing, and it is a telemarketer. Now, some of us have developed a habit of just not attending calls from unknown numbers. You just don't answer them. Your phone is off all the time. The ringer is off. But sometimes the possibilities and the worry of who might be on the other side gets the better of us. What if it is a call from our bank about a fraudulent transaction that we need to attend to? What if it's a call for a job interview? What if it's someone calling us in an emergency? So we switch our ringer back on, or we answer that call. And then what happens? It's a telemarketer on the line, of course. The perseverance of these telemarketers. Well, some would say commend them. They're doing a job. It's just somebody working at a call center. But I can tell you, it is really irritating and it's really damaging for everyone's productivity. Look, I get it. So those people in a call center have a job to do, and I get it that some companies may feel that it's the right thing to do. Let's make cold calls to a large number of people and they will translate into leads, and great, we will get business. But hey, companies, you could be smart about this. You don't have to irritate and infuriate 1 million people to get 100 leads. Think of what it's doing for your reputation. Think of what it's doing to people who are saying, I've got so many crank calls and spam calls from this bank, I'm going to never work with that bank again. I'm going to disassociate with that bank. I have an account in that bank, I'm going to close the account. Trust me, it happens. That's why many of us react. You can be smart about this. Just sample this, for example. Let's say you paid your broadband bill, but you keep getting calls and messages reminding you to make the payment. Hey, get your account straight. Here's another one. You've changed your broadband service provider, but the old one will still call you for already paid dues, despite the fact that you've already informed them 100 times that you've discontinued their service. Or a bank saying, would you like an overdraft? You tell them once, no, I don't want it. Tell them a second time, I don't want it. After the 10th time, somewhere, a message should ring. It should come up somewhere next to that number. This person does not want that overdraft facility. Don't call him or her. If the industry can be smart enough to maintain a huge database of subscribers, even of those who are not subscribers, it can't be that difficult. Surely the industry can then be smart enough to update the database with information about people who are not interested, so you don't harass them. There is a solution. Well, there's supposed to be another solution, which the entire industry is supposed to be subscribing to. And that's called the Do Not Disturb Registry. You're supposed to be able to send messages to the DND number or call it and register to opt out of these calls. But unfortunately, it just does not seem to work. So now, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which is also obviously seized with this entire problem, has recommended a few fresh measures to make it easier to deal with spam calls. They have, for example, suggested that instead of the caller's number, the caller's name should be displayed on the screen, making it easier for people to choose whether they want to attend the call or not. Now, this suggestion has also raised some concerns about privacy violations, but perhaps it is one possible solution, and there could be others. And for all of this, who better to talk to than Dr. R.S. Sharma, former chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, now working, of course, to help us all with our healthcare. So, well, Dr. Sharma, thank you so much for joining us. I can't think of a better person to help us find a solution. You've been chairman TRAI. Now you're looking after all of our collective health, and I can tell you nothing bothers our health more, damages it more than the constant ringing of phones, with it being a spam call. We can't work, we can't function because the phone rings every 5 minutes and it's somebody calling us with a spam message. Please help us, sir. What's the solution to this? How do we solve the problem?
Well, thank you very much, Vikram, for having me and posing that question to me. I'm not very sure whether I have a solution ready-made in my hands, but nevertheless, I'll be able to give you my sort of views. So one is that as you rightly say, things are becoming worse and worse, because not only now you have spams, you also have scams. And actually, all kinds of stuff is happening. Today morning itself, I got a call on an IVR system to say that I'm calling from FedEx. And, then the guy started telling me that, this is your address, this is your name. And then he said, oh, we have a packet which you had sent from Bombay to Russia.
Yeah.
I realized, what is this? I mean, I never sent any packet from any place to any place.
You know, Dr. Sharma, I got almost exactly that same call, which I also almost fell for until the guy said, you've sent a package to Myanmar. And I said, oh my God, this is a scam. But you know what? So you're the former chairperson of TRAI. But if even you can answer that call and almost fall for it for a few seconds or a minute, it means somebody who's in a distant place, rural India, somebody not that tech savvy, somebody elderly, may well be taken for a ride. They may actually fall for that scam. So it's really serious.
Yeah, absolutely. So let us deal with the first issue of spam, not really scam, because the scam is a much larger sort of stuff, and they can actually lure you into conversation and then ask you to do something which you willingly do, and then ultimately are trapped by them. So let's forget that. But the other part, which is basically calls saying that you have to buy property, or this is some other offer or that offer, so this is bank loan, all kinds of spam calls keep on coming, and that is a real nuisance. So essentially, there are 3-4 dimensions to this, as far as I know. Of course, my knowledge may be a little obsolete, but then I think whatever I can recall. One is the telemarketeers. So telemarketeers, which have their legitimate business of sort of marketing, telemarketing on behalf of some companies or some banks or some institutions. That is one set of persons in this business, and they actually there are promotional calls, there are transactional calls like OTP and stuff like that. So essentially, what is happening is that the TRAI a few years back had actually started to templatize these calls, these SMSs and these calls also. And essentially, we had said that the number should be there, and there should be a DND situation, do not disturb. And if I subscribe to the DND, then I should not be, getting that call.
But Dr. Sharma, a lot of people are subscribed to DND. I know this is something that you and DRA and others have been following for a while. A lot of people do subscribe to DND, but that doesn't stop it. The calls are still coming through. And when you tell the person, how are you calling me when I've subscribed to DND? How did you get my number? Then they just disconnect it quickly. But the harassment has already happened.
So let me put it this way. The way the registered telemarketers are expected to work is that when they have a list of telephone numbers which they are supposed to call, they scrub this list with the DND list. And in a zero knowledge proof, in the sense that without really divulging any information, they get back the list of the people, the list of the phone numbers which are not on DND. So therefore, they are allowed to call. So if there is a registered telemarketer, he or she does that kind of calling. Unfortunate part is that the calls are not coming from registered telemarketers. Calls are coming from unregistered actual numbers. If you see those numbers, they are the actual numbers, they are not the telemarketing numbers. So that is essentially how does it happen? That it happens that some institutions give the calls to, give the contract to telemarketers. Telemarketers in turn give the contracts to some guys who basically have some SIM, and they are, they throw out calls, 100 calls a day. And when somebody complains, they throw the SIM and then start getting another call.
So the question, of course, is that as a user, what can you do? Now, I can tell you, at least in my personal case, a lot of the calls that seem to be coming, let's say, from random 731 numbers. So if I get a call from a 731 number, or 791 or whatever it is, I just automatically auto-block it. But it's like swatting flies, because there are 10 different numbers that are calling you every single day.
No, so the other issue is, how do you block these numbers, right? So blocking these numbers used to take a lot of time earlier, which is basically about 10 days, because suppose you are a customer of Vodafone and you get a call from somebody from Jio. Now you complain to your service provider, which is Vodafone. Vodafone in turn finds out that the caller was from Jio. They tell Jio, and Jio in turn, starts an inquiry into the call. So that's how it happens. So number one, there has to be a good complaint system, absolutely, instantaneous. And that is what we had employed blockchain into doing this, so that as soon as a complaint is received, immediately that complaint is put on a blockchain, and that blockchain is accessible by all the operators, and immediately whichever operator that caller belongs to, that operator is able to take instantaneous action. So therefore the trouble is nipped in the bud. But the critical factor here is, do you have a good complaint system? The TRAI had done an application called DND, and which was very, very friendly. Somehow or the other, I find that application is no more working. And once you don't have any application working, then how do you make a complaint? To whom do you complain? So that's a problem which has happened.
Lakshman, do you think the owners can also be put on the banks or the clients, the people who are asking for these calls to be made? For example, 30-40% of the calls I get are from a couple of banks. So do you think the owners can be put on them to say, why are these telemarketers calling people on a D&D list ostensibly from your bank? They have to take the responsibility for that.
Absolutely. This is already factored into the regulation of TRAI, that any institution or any entity which is actually using the telemarketers to do telemarketing, that entity must be made responsible if there is an unauthorized telephone which actually is making calls. But all that, Vikram, will happen only when you have a very robust and easy complaint system. I mean, if you just talk to some other or your operator will take 30 minutes, press 1, press 3, press 5, and all that. So therefore, if there is a very easy way of complaining, saying that I got this phone from this number, and this number basically just on this subject, and that's about all. This is what the DND application of TRAI did. But unfortunately, on my phone, at least, it's not working.
Well, of course, it's not as if the government or TRAI are not seized with this entire problem. They've been trying to take some steps. Some solutions have been come out just a few days back. What do you make of them? Do you think perhaps they could make a difference in fixing the problem?
No, the current efforts are in the right direction, in my view, because essentially what is going to happen is that if I receive a call, I have a right to know as to who is calling me. Unfortunate part in that is the fact of the matter is that, in villages, etc., or whatever, people get SIMs, and, those SIMs are used by my children, by somebody else. So it may not be perfectly 100% correct, because what is going to be displayed is actually the actual customer in whose name that particular SIM has been issued, not really the guy who is calling. So that may create, but that is not a major problem, because ultimately, in whose name the SIM has been issued, if that person has given its SIM to somebody else, and and his name is coming, then there's not much of a problem. So I think it's a right effort in the right direction, and it does not violate any privacy or anything like that, because ultimately, if I'm calling you, you have a right to know as to who is calling.
And also, sir, that helps in one other manner, which is that if there is somebody whom you would like to take a call from, the problem is that I think in most of our cases, our phones are just off. So if anybody calls me, for example, from an unknown number, they can never reach me because the phone is off. And it could be an important person, it could be a genuine emergency, but they can't reach me because my phone is off. So at least if something is flashing up and I recognize the name, I will answer the call. Unknown number, I will not answer. So that, I guess, is the big advantage of what is now being proposed by the TRAI.
The TRAI currently is actually quite concerned by this fact, and now because the scams are also happening. So this is another area where we need to deploy technology. And in a large scale situation like this, it is not some one or two caller and one or two complaints which will be registered. There should be a very good way of registering complaints. And as I suggested, large number of people should make those apps which actually can just generate complaint and push that to TRAI's backend, which they can take action. So that is how I think this is a solution in the medium and a long run.
All right, Dr. Harish Sharma, former chairperson of TRAI, thank you so much for being with us.